Steve Rattner was plucked from a successful Wall Street career to help save the auto industry. His new book, actually, I have it here, Overhaul, offers the first insider account of the Obama administration as it took on the largest corporate restructuring in American history. We are pleased to have him with us right here in the newsroom. Thanks so much for coming in, Steve. This is pretty fiery. There's a couple of passages in here that made for very quick reading. Some of it was Rahm Emanuel cursing a lot. How much did that happen?
Well, of course, it all happened. I only wrote things that actually happened. But Rahm Emanuel cursing, first of all, is not really news. But secondly, you have to put it in the context in which I wrote it, so it deserves more than a quick read. Rahm Emanuel was basically saying, we want to do the right thing here, not the easy thing. We want you to do this in a way that will fundamentally change these companies for the future.
Those who haven't read it yet, I mean, describe the political infighting. Just how intense was it?
I wouldn't call it political infighting. I would call it a highly professional debate conducted by serious people with serious arguments, particularly over whether to save Chrysler. That was our toughest decision.
Do you think that was the right decision? I know this is sort of revisionist history in some ways, but some people make the argument, rightly, that GM would be a stronger company now had Chrysler been allowed to fail.
That was one of the arguments that was made at the time. It was a good argument. It was a valid argument. But we felt that at that moment, in March of 2009, when the stock market was plunging and the economy seemed to be in a bottomless hole, that if Chrysler could be made viable, it should be saved. And as you say, looking backwards now, Chrysler's had 2 quarters of positive cash flow, of operating profit. It's ahead of our plan. Its future really depends on some new products that haven't come out yet. But so far, I think we very much made the right decision.
All right, you speak about the new products that haven't come out yet. Chrysler's choices seem to be to either be let go or to go with Sergio Marchionne. Do you feel like Chrysler is in the right hands?
Those were the choices, and I do feel that Chrysler's in the right hands. Sergio Marchionne has done a fantastic job. He's exceeded our expectations for the financial results of the company. He's completely focused on new products. He's turned the management team inside out and upside down.
Because he's known as a pretty volatile character as well.
Everybody has their own style. He's a volatile character, but I have never in my entire career met anybody who works as hard as he does.
Talk to us about GM, saying that they are looking to have their IPO before the year end. This seems early. I mean, we had a columnist here, Jonathan Weil, who published a column talking about $30 billion coming out of the air from goodwill and saying, look, GM's balance sheet is not entirely solid. Is this earlier than you would advise the company if you were still in the mix?
Well, let me say 2 things. First of all, GM's balance sheet is very solid. We took their liabilities from $120 billion to $55 billion as part of its restructuring. It has a better balance sheet than Ford at this point. So the balance sheet is not the issue. It is perhaps a tiny bit earlier than one would normally do this in the private sector, but there are really legitimate reasons for getting the government out of the car business. GM wants the government out of the car business. The government wants to be out of the car business. There's a lot for everybody to be gained if this IPO can be completed. All
right, but you do say earlier than perhaps you would otherwise advise. Do you think the Obama administration, going a little bigger picture here, has been weak, for lack of a better term, in telegraphing its success with the auto bailout? I mean, when taxpayers or Congress agreed to this money, this $80 billion, there's a lot of taxpayers who just assumed they were never going to see a dime of it. And it does seem, so far, there's chances of getting some of that money back. Has the Obama administration not bragged enough about its success in this?
I think they've bragged a lot. I think people haven't really listened, or the numbers haven't sunk in, or they can't absorb it. I think the defining moment for people to grasp this will be the GM IPO, because then you'll have a stock price and you'll know how many shares the government owns, and you can do everybody can do the multiplication and find out how much it's worth. But I think when the dust settles, the government will get back, if not all of the $82 billion, awfully close to it.
All right, so you do feel like we'll sort of have a more tangible idea when we see the IPO, and that will let investors sink their teeth into it. Really quickly, Steve, had you been put in charge of the financial overhaul, let's say contributing to the Dodd-Frank bill versus being the auto czar, as you were known for those 6 months, what would you have done differently?
The difference is that with the bank bailout, you had to deal with Congress, and Congress had its own ideas for how to do things. On autos, we very much had the authority to do it on our own. So while there are certainly changes I would make in the Dodd-Frank bill, you'd have to go deal with Congress to accomplish those, and that's a very, very difficult task.